Hi handsome and welcome to my 47th video as well as to another IronPan challenge episode. The challenge where I try to make 1 million of every single meal in the game without using the central market. Last time I showed you where and how to make Mediah meals if you so choose. This time we are changing the formula a little bit because while I did go over the where and how in the last episode, I never went over the amount of time that this process does take. That changes now, so come with me on the journey to see how long it took me to make 1 million Mediah meals. Here is the entire list of ingredients for Mediah meal. In order for this video to still have a semblance of a structure, I will split them and their respective activities into 3 distinct categories. These are active, semi-AFK and fully AFK ingredients. I think that the names are on the nose and quite obvious, so I think we can move on to the first of these categories. Let's start with the fully AFK. These are primarily worker ingredients and farm crops. We have any type of grain, which we need roughly 420,000 of. Now, I am not super sure how much grain I get per day, but at least according to Workerman, I get around 11,000 a day, which means that I have to wait roughly 40 days of real time having this game open to get all that I need. Already sounds like a little bit of a pain to deal with, but since these are fully AFK ingredients, all I need for this to happen is to have my game open at all time, and I can work on the other ingredients in the meantime as well. At the same time, since I have already been doing this challenge for a while now, even though I needed plenty of grain for some of the previous recipes, I still had enough for Mediah meal to not be an issue. Next, we have 2 Nemesis, Resident Evil tyrants of this challenge. Cooking honey and eggs. I might make a separate video on just these 2 and the lengths I have to go to get these. But for the sake of the meal, we need 170,000 cooking honey and 80,000 eggs. According to Workerman yet again, I get around 1000 eggs and 1900 honey a day, which means 80 and 90 days of waiting respectively. Thankfully, we got enough of both of these for this meal, and rest assured that in the future our egg situation is going to be really bad. I would say on the level of today's America. That's all the worker stuff. Now, farm crops. There only are 2, onions and pepper. Now, calculating farm crops is a little bit wonky, mostly because Mediah meal has several recipes with different amounts of crops required. I will try to explain here a bit, but it's still a bit weird. We are farming for special crops, but we are never using them as is. For items that require free crops, such as oatmeal, it can be replaced with 1 high quality crop, so we exchange the special into high quality and cook with those. By the way, I mentioned in the last video on Odilita where you can do it, and it's, I believe, with every seed vendor you can do it, but I'm not 100% sure on that one, so maybe in the comments if you can correct me, please do. The items that require 2 crops can still be replaced with high quality, and since this saves our weight on the character that we are cooking on, same applies here and we're gonna be using the high quality. Items that require only 1 crop, such as the grilled sausage here, we will exchange the special crops for 4 times the amount of basic grade crops and cook with those. Because of all of this wonkiness, the math is not 100%, but I needed roughly 72,000 special onions and 93,000 special pepper. I have 10 big fences, including some pay-to-win fences, with 2 magical crops per fence, and I usually harvest 4 times for seeds and 6 times for crops. It's not always the same, sometimes it's 5 and 5, sometimes it's 6 and 4 the other way around, but usually I get around 1500 to 2000 special crops combined every harvest, which is roughly 2 to 3 times a day, and this means that per day I get anywhere between 3 and 6,000. So we are just going to split the difference and go with 4500 crops a day, making this part of the challenge take us around 36 days of honest work. All of this does already sound like a lot of time needed, but keep in mind that I didn't have to move a muscle for any of the worker stuff, and I don't think that you won't either if you do decide to do the same thing as me. And I got into a decent routine with the farming where I would harvest crops whenever I woke up, when I started streaming, and if I could, before I ended the stream, which is why I said I usually do 2 to 3 harvests a day. The next section, however, is not going to be so lucky. We will skip the semi-AFK activities for now, since we need the ingredients from the active as well before we can put them together in the semi-AFK category. Surprisingly enough, there are only 3 items in the active category that we need for Mediah Meals, and these are bird meat, any type, not just chicken, red meat, and any of this type of blood. I don't know exactly which one it is. From the least time to the most time, we needed roughly 350,000 bird meat. We are still getting some help from the workers, since all the egg nodes also give us roughly 3,000 chicken meat a day, but our main source of bird meat is, you guessed it, the same place as in the last episode, which is the cuckoo birds near Calphion. Much like most other animal gathering places, I got around 22,000 meat without agris and around 28,000 meat with agris. Although I didn't use agris a lot, as butchering eats agris very fast and it's not very efficient, and at the same time doesn't give you enough, in my opinion, to warrant using it. This puts us at around 15 hours of gathering for the meat. Not bad. Next up is the blood. Now, you can use any of the blood that you see on the screen right now, but funnily enough, I used mostly llama blood that I got from hunting llamas way back in the day during the start of this challenge, when I still thought that Special Dragonese meal was an easy slam dunk, and I didn't know just how much of a pain in the ass the cooking honey bottleneck was going to be. Hunting llamas at the time was around 21,000 blood an hour, but keep in mind that this was long before we got the hunting bag, so with around 300 or so more mastery, it's guaranteed to be more, I would say around 22 to 23,000 an hour, depends on how good at hunting you are. Of course, you can also gather for most of these bloods as well, and the places I would recommend, depends on the blood you want, are llamas near Duvenkroon, pigs in Land of the Morning Light, and also some of the OG spots such as deer near Beher and sheep near Heidel. If you prefer hunting, you can also hunt deer in Narsion. I don't think I need to tell you about this spot. And since sniper hunting is so popular today, you can use the pig blood, but only the pig blood, from that as well. Although you get way less blood from sniper hunting than you do regular hunting, and the bear blood, as I said, is not compatible with this type of blood, so you're gonna take more time getting the blood if you choose to do sniper hunting. You will get more red meat, however, which is the last thing on the list of ingredients that we need from this category. Before we move on to red meat, I realized I forgot to tell you how much blood we needed. We needed 480,000 blood, and at the roughly 21,000 blood an hour, this took us roughly 23 hours. So there you go. And now over to red meat. You will need 1.2 million red meat for this recipe. Now, the red meat guide I alluded to in my previous IronPan video is going to be the next episode of IronPan, so I'm going to be light on the details, but you can of course use the hunting methods that I have just talked about, or you can just gather, which is my preferred method of getting red meat. Gathering red meat usually is around 22,000 meat an hour, and that means that this took me roughly 54 hours of just gathering. Thankfully, red meat is the most common item in the game that can be gathered from a plethora of places and activities, which also means that there's a great variety in the gathering content, something that can't really be said about the ingredients for the next meal in the challenge, which is going to be Valencia, so stay tuned for that one. Finally, let's circle back to these semi-AFK activities. There are only two: processing and the cooking itself. The processing consists of 770,000 flour and 235,000 dough, which put together meant a very unfun, I wanna say, 32.5 hours of processing. And finally, putting everything into a big pot, it will take us a measly 32 hours of cooking to have 1 million Mediah meals. And that's about all there is to Mediah meal. A fairly uneventful meal, all things considered, but I still hope you enjoyed a different look into the IronPan challenge. And just to summarize the amount of time I actually needed for 1 million Mediah meals, for those of you who are curious, active gathering took me roughly 92 hours. 64.5 hours was spent on the semi-AFK activities, which is cooking and processing. And if we put these two together, that gives us a combined amount of time of 156.5 hours of playtime that I had to spend doing these things and couldn't do anything else. The fully AFK stuff is harder to gauge, but if we go by the hardest to obtain item on the list, that being cooking honey, I also had to keep the game opened 24/7 for at least 90 days of real time to get all the necessary ingredients for Mediah meals. So there you go. As I have alluded during the video, the next meal in the challenge is going to be Valencia, and after that we will have Cama Sylvia, both of which I have already done most of the preparations for, so they should be ready relatively quickly. After those two, however, expect things to slow down. We are slowly but surely leaving the land of somewhat easy meals and ramping the difficulty to at least medium, but I wanna say hard because none of these are really easy mode. Now, the meals after Cama Sylvia and Valencia are not going to be impossible, just more time consuming. So while the IronPan is not going anywhere for the time being, it will definitely be a lot of my content on Twitch. Yes, this has all been a big ploy to get you to come over to my Twitch and watch me do the challenge in real time if you aren't already. I also do a lot of other stuff besides live skilling, so I will see you there if you are interested. Here on YouTube there's more content to come as well, so never worry, I am not going anywhere. That's all I have for you today, handsome. Remember to like and subscribe, and enjoy your grind.